Good morning, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Bradley Pallant, and I'll be your moderator today. All attendees are in listen mode only. If you joined the audio via phone, please be sure you entered the PIN number to enable audio controls. If you did not enter the PIN, you may find it now by going to the audio section of the control box on the right of the screen. You may enter questions in the chat box at any time. All questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Today's webinar is Duty of Care in Action, Promoting Security Awareness for Women Abroad, and I am delighted to welcome Erica Wiesbrod, Regional Security Manager for International SOS and Control Risks, who is joining us today. In her role, Erica provides travel risk management solutions and security assistance to global travelers in the private, non-profit and scholastic sectors and manages the company's security consulting and training program for the Americas region. Erica joined the company in January 2013 as a manager for information and analysis, overseeing the company's 24/7 real-time monitoring and production of global travel security assessments. Prior to joining International SOS and Control Risks, Erica spent 11 years as an intelligence analysis with the US Department of Defense, serving assignments overseas and in the Washington, D.C. area. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you, Bradley. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. And today, as Bradley mentioned, I will be talking about a duty of care and promoting women's safety awareness abroad. And we'll kick off and we'll move to the agenda of what we'll be discussing for the next 20 or 30 minutes. So starting with the agenda, what I will speak to today, I will go over some recent incidents and trends that we've seen among women travelers. Some very recent and some based on our research and experience at International SOS and trying to support international female travelers abroad. I'll then go in to discuss what we have identified as the 5 golden rules to help keep women safe and secure as they travel abroad. And finally, we'll wrap up with a few questions and answers and a summary of what I've discussed during the presentation. Next slide, please. So in the spotlight, we regularly hear of incidents involving female travelers, and I'm going to go over a couple of headlines that have recently appeared in the news. In Egypt, for example, sexual harassment and assault on local expatriate and visiting women on the street is really systemic, and according to the United Nations, more than 99% of Egyptian women have experienced harassment. Every year during celebrations in Tahrir Square for the anniversary of the Egyptian Revolution, there are a number of women who are assaulted. And about 91 cases of sexual abuse have been reported in the year 2013, and those figures are only growing. In India as well, sexual harassment is a considerable cause for concern. An incident in March of this year grabbed headlines as an Irish woman was assaulted and then killed in a beach resort of Goa, which is one of the most popular tourist destinations in the country. Another recent incident also involved a German national who was raped as she was sunbathing in the Indian town of Tamil Nadu state, in an Indian town in Tamil Nadu state. And really in India, a sexual assault is reported every 20 minutes. And that doesn't include the number of incidents that don't go reported. Another example, shifting to Latin America, so this is really an issue that takes place in every region, is a recent case where a young Canadian girl in Mexico was sexually assaulted in January by an employee of the resort where she was staying in Cancun. Subsequently, she was arrested, jailed by the police, and then only released after handing $40 in bribes to guards. Stories like these make headlines in the news, but it's important to remember that female travelers encounter safety and security issues every single day. Some women overcome them easily and others with more difficulty. So in talking for trends for female travelers, the number of women traveling internationally is increasing significantly. It is now is equal to the number of male travelers and making up approximately 45% of the corporate travel market today. During these business trips, women have the same missions and objectives than male colleagues, and unfortunately, the reality is that women face quite a number of different risks. Partly this is because they're likely to be perceived as easier targets for crime, and this is really seen visibly when it comes to bag theft. So when we look at a survey from 2015, we see that 80% of women reported that they felt worried while they were abroad. So how do we support female travelers based on their concerns? And the exposure that they have is making up almost 50% of the global travel population. Next slide. When we continue to look at the trends for female travelers, aside from crime, sexual harassment is the second major risk that women face when they're traveling, as has been seen in some of the headlines that I referenced earlier. Sexual harassment is experienced by 1/3 of female travelers. And since women travel in business much more often than before, it is increasingly important for organizations to support and prepare their female travelers to conduct business safely on behalf of their organization. I'm going to go through some tips that are designed to help you prevent your female travelers, or if you are a female traveler yourself, in ways to prevent your own exposure to security risks and mitigate the impact of problems that women may encounter while they are abroad. So we're going to kick off into what we have identified, International SOS, as the 5 golden rules for female travel security. So if we move to the next slide, we will cover the first golden rule, which is knowing your profile. Experience can be a really significant mitigating factor. If you've never traveled out of the country before, or if you've traveled extensively, your comfort level is going to significantly vary. It will also impact your confidence and in terms of your experience managing a variety of challenging situations in the past if you've done a lot of traveling, or your lack of experience if you haven't. Similarly, a strong prior knowledge of your destination will help you in knowing what to expect when you arrive at your destination. So helping you select a hotel if you stayed there before, if you've eaten at some restaurants, if you know what the ability is to travel around, and your overall comfort and safety. Personality can also play into this golden rule in terms of understanding your profile. It's important to ask yourself or to ask your employees and understand the kind of traveler that they are, what their natural instinct is. Is it to, are they naturally outgoing? Are they adventurous type who really just they can't bear the thought to stay in their hotel room and have room service? They like to try out new places, and they're always trying to explore and get a taste of the local culture, cuisine, meet new people. But the other spectrum is there are a lot of very cautious travelers, and these are individuals who really don't want to leave anything to chance. They want to be prepared in every way. They do a lot of research, and they're much more likely to keep themselves to a more limited itinerary regime, even limiting their dietary curiosity. So all of these sorts of factors will really have an impact on your travelers or your exposure to risk. Language also plays a role. If you know the local language, that will really help you get around the area. You can deal a lot more easily with hotel staff, taxi drivers, the police if necessary. We recommend that if you don't know the language, and particularly where the language uses a different script, that you write down important addresses, such as your hotel, in the local language. So let's say if you're in China or Russia, that you have your address and your key information written down in Mandarin or in Russian, so that you can show that information to your driver or to the local authorities if you need assistance. Budget also plays a role in your profile in terms of mainly the kind of accommodation that you can use, and that will vary your risk exposure as well as your modes of transportation. So if you can't afford to stay in a nice 5-star international hotel that checks all the boxes as far as security, is it still safe for you to travel to that destination? So really understanding budget and as far as transportation and hotel. And then dress. This is something that does really differ for female travelers and male travelers. Kind of top-line recommendation is that to avoid wearing overtly designer or expensive clothes or bags, as this will really make you stand out or become a target based on perceived wealth. I'd like to tell you, wear whatever you wish when you travel, but it's important to understand what the local dress customs are before you travel. I frequently bring a scarf or a shawl with me on trips so that I can always cover my shoulders or my legs or my head as necessary, to be respectful of the local culture and to not increase my profile while traveling. Another consideration is if you want to wear a fake or make sure you wear your wedding ring if you don't think it's going to be a target for theft, to try to avoid and deter any unwanted approaches. So even if you're not married, wearing a fake ring can help to deter unwanted advances. Wearing sunglasses as well can help to limit eye contact with strangers if you're trying to not be noticed on the street. So now we move to the next slide, which is to do your research. So this is golden rule number 2. And knowing some information about your destination is very important before you go. These assumptions that you make that don't happen to verifiable sources can actually be quite wrong and even dangerous. So it's important to have access to reliable resources, whether they're government resources such as the State Department, through your employer, or if you have an assistance provider, as we are able to support through International SOS. Local contacts are also very, very useful. At International SOS, we provide plenty of content which is available online through our website, and there's information about the risks for every country, mitigation measures to take against them, information on cultural etiquette, as well as specific security information for business women. We also have 24/7 access for our members to talk to a security expert and ask any profile or itinerary specific questions that they may have before they travel. So this is actually something I did before I traveled to India as a single female traveler on a work trip. Is I reached out and I got some additional information to find out what additional mitigation should I put in place if I'm traveling alone, and got great recommendations that kind of went against my natural instinct to kind of explore and be adventurous, but to stay in my hotel after dark, to use a car service to get around, just to help lower my profile and ensure that I have a safe and secure business trip. Another example case we had was a woman who was traveling in Cairo in a taxi, and she was harassed by the driver. But on the flip side, if she'd done the research before traveling in Cairo, she would have discovered that there actually exists a women-only taxi service, a pink taxi, which is available in Egypt. So understanding some of these important recommendations before you travel is key. Moving on to the next golden rule, which is to be a hard target. This is some general rules about taxis, and this doesn't apply universally. These are some broad recommendations, but It's important to note that taxis booked through official services are likely to be safer than those hailed in the street. And for females to hail a taxi on the street, it increases the opportunity for scams, sexual assault, and also crime. So we always recommend never to sit in the front seat, to wear a seatbelt, to agree on the fare in advance where possible, and never get into a taxi that already has someone in it. If you opt for a private car and a local driver instead, the driver can also act as an interpreter, local guide, or even a diplomat. So it offers an additional layer of safety and security if that is an option that you as a female traveler decide to go down. We move to golden rule number 4 on the next slide, which is to be confident. So for female travelers, confidence is really key. Confidence and assertiveness. These are important aspects for women's safety. And by this I mean walking with purpose and avoid looking afraid or confused. So some of this goes back to the research that you've done so you feel more comfortable in the location where you are, and also adhering to your personal comfort levels. It's important not to be afraid to sound rude, and you can say no thank you and be assertive and firmly refuse invitations, even from local business contacts if you feel uncomfortable. If you're at a hotel and you're not comfortable with your room, thinking it might be insecure, then it's also important to have the confidence to ask if you can have another room, one that you do think is going to be more secure and safe. So these factors will limit your exposure to risk, and they'll also increase your ability to avoid panic. It doesn't help if you're in a situation where you lose control of your senses. So we also encourage you to trust your instincts. And this applies across the board in a foreign destination and also domestically. So if you think someone is following you, return to a public, brightly lit area. It could be a shopping mall, it could be a hotel lobby. You can call your own hotel to arrange a car to come and get you. If you don't trust your colleagues or the sales executives who suggest for you to go have a drink after work, then just don't go. It's important not to panic. Panic is not your friend in a situation where you're being harassed or if you're a victim. And so, again, losing your sense of control lessens your power over the situation. If someone is hassling you, it's important to maintain your pace, ignore the person. If they approach you, then try to maintain distance from them and protect your personal space. Try to avoid eye contact, since this can also be seen as a sign of encouragement. Very frequently, verbal harassment also empowers the person if you respond. So try not to answer back to comments that are made, especially if you're walking down the street and someone says something to you. Just try to ignore it. And if the situation escalates, don't be afraid to draw attention. Most frequently, bystanders and locals will come to your assistance. So now we move to the 5th golden rule, which is to stay calm. So if you are involved in a serious security incident, such as an armed assault, which may include a robbery, an assault, or kidnapping, your response is to a degree going to be a personal one. There isn't a textbook answer. However, there are a few do's and don'ts that we recommend, especially in a life-threatening situation. It's important to remember that the attacker is unlikely to be in a rational state of mind. So if you stay calm, you're more likely to retain control of the situation. However, you should also comply with the attacker's demands, because if you try to resist, it can expose you to greater risk of being seriously injured or killed, especially if the attacker is armed. I always say it's just possessions. It's just your phone. It's just your wallet. It's not worth your life. So don't resist and give over any valuables if you are involved in a robbery. If you find yourself in a dangerous situation or you feel uncomfortable, be aware who might be able to help you in that immediate environment. It could be an assistance provider, it could be the local authorities, it could be your local contacts, but thanks to earlier research which you've hopefully done, you'll also have an insight as to whether, for example, the local police and law enforcement are reliable and trustworthy. They're not in every country. So you need to have a backup to make sure that you have that assistance and support network if something does happen. It's also important to ensure that you have your hotel business card and any important contact numbers on you. You can show your hotel business card to a taxi driver. We also recommend keeping copies of important documents such as your passport. I often keep them on a Google Drive somewhere online so that if you do get robbed, if you do get mugged, that you can quickly access copies of important documents from, it could be an internet terminal. It's also important to keep some spare cash tucked away, especially when it comes to purse snatching. If you have some additional cash that's tucked away, we recommend in a shoe, or for females in your bra, that can also work. A lot of thieves tend to know that individuals might be wearing money belts. So those were the 5 golden rules. I went through the information rather quickly, but I really want to touch on, they're all important, and abiding by just one of them isn't going to help you through your entire journey. It's important to adopt all 5 of them together, and making sure that you understand the vulnerabilities of your profile, that you do the research of your destination before your trip, that you ensure that you're a hard target, making yourself a hard target by, part of it is through the research, but also by being confident and making smart choices, and that you maintain that confidence and remain calm but vigilant if something does happen, and you try not to panic. So those are the 5 golden rules. I hope they are simple enough that you can adopt them in your day-to-day, or at least a few of those tips and recommendations as you plan for your next trip abroad, or your first trip abroad, or you're supporting your travel population when they go abroad. And at this point, I'd like to open up and see if anyone has any questions on the content that I covered.
We do have a question that came through, is can you send us the links to some of the resources that you mentioned? Yes, we will. I will sit with Erica, and we will ensure that everyone on the call, we will send an email out with all necessary links. And I'm sure this then rolls into the next question, is where can I do some research on culturally appropriate dress for certain countries?
Yes, so that is a great question. It's something that we try to make available for our clients, and understanding that as part of business travel and female business travel and cultural etiquette. A really great recommendation is reaching out to local contacts. If you have an office, counterpart office that you're visiting, if you have any individuals in the office that you're working at domestically that are from that country, you can look online, but I think the best recommendation is talking to individuals who have spent time in the country, particularly in a professional manner. So understanding there are going to be 2 tiers of clothing. One is going to be, what would you wear if you're going on vacations, and in vacation spots there tends to be a lot more leniency for casual attire, but for a business professional setting, getting input from a fellow female colleague who understands the culture and attire in that country would be my best recommendation, if you can find an individual like that. If you have regional resources, that's important. In this case, there are a couple other websites that talk about female travel, and we can send those resources through, especially when it comes to when it's appropriate to cover your arms, your legs, your head, and being culturally sensitive from that regard.
Another question just came in. If I'm invited to dinner after a client meeting, is it okay for me to bow out in certain cultures? And I'm assuming that when they say bow out, meaning just not to attend.
Yeah, and that's really, it goes back to that, trusting your instinct and confidence. It's important to be polite and respectful of the culture. At the same time, if you think that the invitation would put you at some ill ease, that you wouldn't feel comfortable or safe in that environment, I absolutely recommend, you can say it in a polite way, but finding some appropriate excuse for why you are unable to attend the event.
Wonderful. Another question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How can I support women who have various identities in assessing risk levels for travel?
Yeah. So this is really, when I say know your profile, and every woman is going to be different, especially when it comes to the experience of travel, but also when it comes to age, when it comes to sexual orientation, when it comes to ethnicity, race. So understanding your specific profile is very important, and making sure that if there are some legal, political, social, or cultural issues that might increase the traveler profile, it could be, laws against homosexuality. It could be different political tensions for individuals from a certain religion or race. That it's important to understand what those underlying sensitivities are, and to find ways in which you can mitigate your profile as significantly as possible. Same thing if there are considerations that it might flag those travelers for additional scrutiny when they do border checks. Border crossings, that there may be some profiling, that there may be some additional questioning. And so understanding that your travelers of different profiles may have different challenges when going on assignments to different countries.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Erica. Any more questions? I'll leave it open just a little longer. Okay, since there's no more questions that are coming through, again, Erica, thank you so much for your informative presentation today, and thank you to our audience for your time and participation. The webinar has been recorded and will be made available for replay. If anyone thinks of any additional questions or would like more information on the subject, please contact your Travelon account manager. Also, please mark your calendars now for the next monthly webinar. The date is just a little over 2 weeks from now on June 29th. The topic and registration details will be advised shortly. Again, thank you all for your time today, and Erica, again, thank you for a very informative and very important presentation. And everyone, enjoy the remainder of your day. Thank you so much.